Welcome everyone, I'm Dale and this is Cinema Historia. First wife shipwrecked, second marriage begins, and first wife returns. This week we're going back to 1940 for a screwball comedy called My Favorite Wife, starring Irene Dunne, Cary Grant, Randolph Scott, and Gail Patrick. And this is directed by Garson Kanin and produced by and story by Leo McCarey. So where does our story begin this week? Well, it begins with Nick Arden, played by Cary Grant. After missing at sea for 7 years, lawyer Nick Arden's wife, Ellen, played by Irene Dunne, is now declared legally dead. So he can now marry Bianca, played by Gail Patrick. Ellen, though, was actually shipwrecked on a desert island and has now been rescued. When she returns home, she learns that Nick has just left on his honeymoon with his second wife. So Ellen tracks him down the night before his honeymoon, and he doesn't know how to break the news to Bianca and continually puts it off. Meanwhile, Bianca becomes frustrated by Nick's odd behavior. Also, Nick hears rumor that Ellen was not alone on the island, but had company by the name of Stephen Birkin, played by Randolph Scott. And when they were on the island together, they called each other Adam and Eve. So now Nick is upset, not knowing what took place on the island. We can only imagine. So does Nick get to start his honeymoon? Do both wives fight to stay married? Or does Nick have a big decision to make before he gets charged with bigamy? A great screwball comedy. Was actually production company RKO's second biggest hit of 1940. Leo McCarey was supposed to direct this movie as he was the director of The Awful Truth with Cary Grant and Irene Dunne in 1937. But unfortunately, because he was in a near fatal car accident, Garson Kanin was assigned as director. A number of the pre-production conferences took place in the hospital as Leo was the head of production. The film had 3 nominations at the Academy Awards in 1941 for Best Writing, Best Art Direction, and Best Music. It was nominated into the American Film Institute's 2000 list of the top 100 funniest American movies. And it made it into the 2002 list of the top 100 American love stories. And that it is. So the trivia question this week. Not as easy this week. What was the reason for Cary Grant's character in the movie called Nick Arden? Was there a reason why Cary Grant's character was named Nick Arden? So, a little more history and the answer to our trivia question. Coming up next. So since Valentine's is just around the corner, I thought it might be interesting to do a brief history on how Valentine's Day began. Now, there's more than one theory on how Valentine's Day began, but I'm going to give you a brief rundown on the one I chose. So, at the end of the 5th century, Pope Gelasius declared February 14th St. Valentine's Day, though it was generally more religious than romantic. Valentine's Day is a fixed day on the calendar that got lumped into the mid-February holiday on the ancient Roman calendar called Lupercalia, which some historians believe is what led to the Valentine's Day being all about love, as Lupercalia is a celebration of fertility. Valentine's Day was chosen on February 14th because Lupercalia was celebrated on February 15th. Saint Valentine was a Roman priest who performed weddings for soldiers forbidden to marry. Roman emperors believed married soldiers did not make good warriors, and thus young men could not marry. Saint Valentine wore a ring with a cupid on it, a symbol of love, to help soldiers recognize him. So by the end of the 15th century, the word Valentine was being used and described as a lover in poems and songs of the day. And in the 18th century, a book called The Young Man's Valentine Writer was published in England. So by the 19th century, or the mid-19th century actually, mass-produced paper Valentine's Day cards were being created and Valentine's Day was born. Pretty interesting. And here's some comical quotes that might help rekindle Valentine's Day for you. Or not. I didn't fall for you, you tripped me. Love means nothing in tennis, but it's everything in life. By all means, marry. If you get a good wife, you'll be happy. If you get a bad one, you'll become a philosopher. 80% of married men cheat in America, the rest cheat in Europe. Love is blind, marriage is the eye-opener. Do you believe in love at first sight, or should I walk by again? The secret to long marriage is to stay gone. Marriage is a wonderful invention. Then again, so is a bicycle kit. You can't put a price tag on love, but if you could, I'd wait for it to go on sale. Love is a two-way street, constantly under construction. Here's one from George Burns. Love is like a backache. It doesn't show up on the x-rays, but you know it's there. One from Agatha Christie. She states an archaeologist makes the best husband. The older she gets, the more interested he is in her. And from James Gardner. Marriage is a lot like the army. Everyone complains, but you'd be surprised at the number that re-enlist. From Phyllis Diller. Marry a man your own age. As your beauty fades, so will his eyesight. And last but not least, marriage is like pantyhose. It all depends on what you put into it. How true it is. More of on a serious note, what do they consider the best gifts? Well, here's what consumers had to say the top gifts are. 52% of consumers say it's Valentine's Day cards, and you score extra points for personalizing it. 48% of consumers say it's chocolates. 34% of consumers say it's flowers, which could include roses, carnations, lilies, tulips, and even sunflowers. 35% of consumers say dinner for two, and 25% of consumers say clothing, which probably includes lingerie. Valentine's Day is a major source of economic activity, with total expenditures in 2017 anyway, topping $18.2 billion, or average of $136 per person. In the United States alone, about 190 million Valentine's Day cards are sent each year. Wow. Or as Cary Grant would say, oh, I don't believe it. And speaking of Cary Grant, the answer to our trivia question, was there a reason why Cary Grant's character was named Nick Arden? Pretty interesting, actually. The story, or this story in the film, is an adaptation of Alfred, Lord Tennessee's 1864 poem, Enoch Arden. So in tribute, the main character's last name is Arden. Pretty neat. And actually, I hope you liked this video. If you like my videos, if you could please help my channel and support and hit the subscribe button, that would be great. And just a quick note, remember guys, you're getting off light for Valentine's. Just think how Nick Arden's character felt when he found out he had two wives. He had to buy 2 sets of roses. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone, and I hope to see you back next week.
Sorry to keep you waiting, dear.